This is With the First Pick, the CBS Sports NFL Draft Podcast. This is episode 52. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. And today, we're wrapping up our division-by-division look at how each team did in the draft with the AFC and NFC West. And if you missed it last week, we did the AFC and NFC East with our guy, Lige Douzable, and the AFC and NFC South with our other guy, Mayor Jacksonville, Pete Prisco. And then Rick and I hit the old AFC and NFC North on Monday. All those podcasts are in the feed. If you want to check those out, please do. And coming up, according to Debo here, we have a draft mailbag on Memorial Day because we always work. Rick has bills to pay. He's trying to rub two nickels together to pay for his 40,000 square foot house on the water, but that's another conversation. You can ask questions about it in the mailbag. So start sending your questions in via Apple Podcast, Twitter at NFL Draft CBS, or in our YouTube comments section. Rick, is there any question that you will not answer?
No. Are we going to cover the XFLs, and how we the XFL draft and the USFL?
I talked to Debo, and congratulations. You have been selected, just you, not me, to go to every XFL Pro Day. So look forward to Rick on site doing the XFL Pro Days. And as always, you can watch us live on YouTube at NFL on CBS. Give us a thumbs up while you're there. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. And today's Rick's Paramount Plus Challenge.
Jeez, it was hard last week. I couldn't get through it last week. What's this challenge?
Monday's challenge was Rick could not laugh at his own joke. That lasted 12 seconds. This challenge, as put forth by Debo, you have to go the entire show without mispronouncing a player's name.
All right. So what's next week's challenge? I'll just wave my white flag now.
He's giving up, Debo. And worth noting, I forgot to mention this. Our guy, Adi Joseph, one of the managing editors here, was responsible for getting you the Paramount Plus subscription. So hopefully you'll get to get that thing going, but you got to pass the challenge here. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know, but let me see if I still have it.
I just watched the debut of the Sly Stallone show. Excellent, Rick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The reality show.
I have my Paramount Plus chapstick that I got. That's the only thing I've gotten, but it has Paramount Plus on it.
You could have gotten the koozie. You chose the chapstick when he did the Family Feud style fan event at the Super Bowl. But all right, fingers crossed you can pronounce everyone's name correctly. My name is Ryan. That's Debo producing. So you got those two out of the way.
Don't ask me to say Debo's last name. We got to save that to the end.
Okay, we'll save that to the end. What letter does it start with?
A D.
Oh, there you go. All right, there you go. We're halfway there. All right, let's get to this thing. Let's start with AFC West here. And the Raiders. So I gave the Raiders, Rick, an A. And we'll go quickly through who they took there. Pick 7, they took Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher. They turned out never really on a quarterback. So Will Levis was sitting there. They weren't going to take him, and they've been off of him for a while. So they get Tyree Wilson at 7. The foot issue will be the thing, but I think if he's healthy, that's a slam dunk home run, to mix sports metaphors. Then they came back at the top of round 2, got Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame. Many people's tight end 1, myself included. Was he your tight end 1?
No.
Who was yours?
Kincaid.
Oh, okay. Kincaid is
after
better.
He passed his back physical.
Right.
After his fractured back was healed.
And Dalton Kincaid ended up going in the first round to the Bills. Michael Mayer here at the top of round 2. Byron Young, the interior defensive lineman out of Alabama. One of my favorite players, one of Rick's favorite players, a rat hole player, I think is what Rick described him early on in the process. They needed help in the interior, so they got him. Trey Tucker, the explosive wide receiver / returner, undersized out of Cincinnati in round 3. Jacorian Bennett, I thought he had a chance to go on day 2, goes to the top of day 3. The cornerback out of Maryland played opposite Deontay Banks. Then Aiden O'Connell for depth behind Jimmy G. That makes sense there. Christopher Smith, the safety out of Georgia as well. I liked him a lot. Undersized, but a really smart player. Amari Burnley, linebacker out of Florida. We saw him at the pro day. A little surprised he got drafted, but he went to the bottom of round 6. And at that point, as you point out all the time, Rick, you're throwing darts, hoping to find a diamond in the rough. And finally, Nesta Jade Silvera, the interior defensive lineman out of Arizona State, went in round 7. I think, man, my favorite pick is Tyree Wilson, but because that's obvious. But my second favorite pick might be Byron Young because they need a lot of help in the interior. What did you like about this draft?
Yeah, did we talk about what my boss once told me when I was a young scout coming up, and we talked about darts? here
No.
at the end of the he told me and that you had to stick your hand up a lot of goats' rear ends to find that diamond. So just and so what that meant, it took me 5 years to figure that out before I found the diamond in a goat's arse. But it's that's what you do. You keep searching, you keep searching, you keep searching, and eventually, hopefully, you're able to pull a diamond out somewhere. So that was another way we termed look under every rock.
Was Robert Porcher that diamond, or who was the diamond?
Robert Porcher was my first draft ever. My first report I ever wrote was Major Harris.
Quarterback out of West Virginia.
And I remember going to West Virginia. It was handwritten because there were no computers at the time. We were using the paper with the paper underneath. And so when you had to write hard so you can get an automatic copy underneath it.
Yeah. Carbon paper, I think is what you used to
call it. Carbon copy paper. And it took me 3 hours to probably write about 8 sentences because I scribbled about 22 times. I went through all my supply of carbon copy paper.
Because whiteout doesn't work if you mess up.
Well, I figured out if you use whiteout on top, you use whiteout on the bottom. So it was a learning experience, but it's amazing. You know, the first time that you evaluate someone and you're looking at it on tape, and that's different. Now, how do I describe it in words? And that takes some time. And that's a lot, you know, when young scouts first get started out. Now they have reports that they can use for references to read the language, but I didn't have any of that. Back in the day, they just said sink or swim. Here's your area from West Virginia to Miami of Florida. Drive it and go out there and start. And
let me ask you this, not to get too far down this rabbit hole, but now you actually have like a week or whatever training sessions for the scouts, right? The new scouts. Is that true?
Yeah, what we did for our young guys and our interns, we had training sessions, but what we did was we actually set up them coming to the facility one morning. And we did this during the summer when it was downtime, and they were coming to the facility like it was a school call. So I would be like the head coach. One guy would be they have to go and talk to the strength coach. They'd have to go talk to the trainer. They'd have to go talk. And then we throw little hiccups in there, like the trainer was too busy to talk to him that day. How do you get information? So we actually had them come in, how they conduct themselves, how they were dressed that day, because you're representing the organization. So you don't come in T-shirts and flip-flops.
Briscoe's out.
So Briscoe's out. So that's why he never made it as a scout, a wannabe scout. That's what he's always been, a wannabe. But how you conduct interviews with the people in the building. You know, a couple guys were creative, brought in bagels and donuts. So it was, they had that whole day, and then they had to write their reports at the end of the day after they watched all the videotape and stuff and did all their interviews with everybody in the building. And then we would look at them, and the next morning they come in, and then we would critique them on everything they did. And so it's a great way to kind of develop the young guys. That's why I always believed in bringing in interns and let them learn your system, let them go through a cycle. And then if they pass that test, then we would start sending them to some of the small schools, maybe 3 or 4 schools during the fall, just to go out there and kind of get their feet wet. So that's a whole developmental process, just like it is with players or anything else.
And you got none of that training. You just said
I got none of that training. It was I was so excited when I got my Blesto, the combine scouting job. I quit my job where I was at. I put in my 2 weeks notice as soon as I found out that I was going to, and I was so excited. I was living in Columbus, and I had to drive. My first school visit was in, where was that? Oh, Lenore Ryan.
Yeah, North Carolina, baby.
In North Carolina, where I went down. So I drove down. I got from Columbus, Ohio to West Virginia, and I look in my back of the car, and I forgot my suitcase because I was going to be out on the road for 2 weeks. Didn't bring anything. Just jumped in the car.
You were so excited.
So I had to drive 3 hours back, go get my supplies and suitcase. I couldn't call my wife. There was no cell phone, so I had to pull over to a payphone and call her. She had to accept the collect call.
Oh my gosh.
And then turn around and drove back down. I was like 4 hours late for where I was supposed to be at the school.
Did you ever all right, this 30 seconds, then we'll keep going on because I'm actually curious about this. Did you ever lose any reports? Because again, if they're handwritten, you don't have them stored on your computer.
No, that was the one thing is that they said it's, I don't care if you drop over or you're getting a car wreck. The one thing is protect those reports and make sure that you put them in an envelope after you're done. So if anyone finds you on the side of the road or you're stranded, they could at least send the reports back to the office.
There you go. Because I would imagine
that was old school.
That would be what would terrorize me, would traumatize me if I lost those reports or the fear of losing those reports. I couldn't handle the.
Well, traveling with you this spring, it's the fear would have been you just trying to find the football office and trying to navigate yourself around.
That's true. I thought you were going to say finding a Denny's. I can find the Denny's. I can't find.
You can find somewhere to eat. You can find a good coffee shop. But as far as doing your job and finding a football facility, that was no question.
We're all good at something, and it's important to know what you're good at. Don't stay in your lane is what I like to tell my kids. Stay in your lane. All right,
Everybody has a role.
That's right. Everyone has a role. So I gave the Raiders an A for that draft. I thought they did a really good job. I think, Jimmy G has to be healthy, and that'll be a huge part of their success, as it will be in that division. But I think these players are all players that make sense, all make this team better, and there weren't any sort of head-scratching picks for me. I would imagine you're okay with the Aiden O'Connell pick as well, just because you need depth.
Yeah, you know what? That's a quarterback that probably Josh McDaniels would like, just because it's the taller, not as athletic, the Tom Brady's of the world. Maybe they think they can find a nugget down there because he is an accurate passer, just not. The question is, do these type of quarterbacks, can they still play in today's NFL game the way the NFL game has changed? But if it was 10 years ago, he may have gotten drafted higher.
Right. No, I agree with that. All right, let's go to the Chargers. I gave them a B+, and it started in the first round with Quentin Johnston. So he's sort of like Mike Williams in terms of body type, and we talked throughout the draft process when we did 45 million mock drafts about how Keenan Allen's in his 30s. He's never been fleet of foot, but he's a great route runner. But you need depth behind them. They have Josh Palmer as well. But I think I've yet to find a quarterback that didn't want to have a huge target at wide receiver, and Quentin Johnston certainly provides that. Then they got Tuli Tuipulotu in the second round. We talked to him at the combine. He flew under the draft radar throughout the entire process, media-wise. But I liked a lot of what he had on tape. He's listed at 290 here. I think he weighed 266 at the combine. So the question is, where is he going to play? They need help on the interior defensive line. We talked to Pete Prisco about that back in the pre-draft process podcast, and he doesn't necessarily give you that unless they're going to pack some weight on him. We'll see. And then Deion Henley, one of your favorite players, the explosive athletic linebacker out of Washington State. Then another little spark plug returner / wide receiver. I think Darius Davis is more going to be targeted as a return guy. They got some depth along the offensive line with Jordan McFadden out of Clemson. And then Scott Matlock, a guy that I heard about late in the process, plays along the defensive line at Boise State. I actually liked him a lot. I thought he had a chance to be a top 100 guy. Ended up going in round 6. And then finally, Max Duggan, again, another depth quarterback behind, in this case, Justin Herbert. My favorite pick might be the intrigue of Tuli Tuipulotu. I don't know where he's going to play, but they need help along the defensive line. What did you like, Rick?
Yeah, I thought this was a solid draft. The question I had, would Quentin Johnston, when they still, I believe, had Flowers on the board and still had Addison on the board, if I'm not mistaken, would you still went with, they decided to go with the bigger, longer guy on the outside to fit the mold of their receivers. But if you had the receivers that they have on the outside right now, could a Zay Flowers or a Addison been someone that you look at in the slot? Because I don't think they have a true slot receiver. They have 3 big receivers on the outside right now.
Hey, Rick, let me ask you, what about Quentin Johnston playing a good amount in the slot?
I think because he's big, people think big automatically that he has to be an outside guy.
Right.
But I do think his movement skills, and we talked about this a lot, the movement skills are of a smaller receiver, especially his run after catch and his ability to wiggle and make things happen after the catch. So it could be a potential slot receiver to go along with Williams and Keenan Allen. So, but I don't know. There was some. Could you went with a Flowers or Addison before a Johnson, because there was a lot of jockeying going on through this receiver class, especially in the first round when on how it all shook out. But you can see right there, right next after he went, Zay Flowers went to Baltimore, and then Addison, that was the run on the receivers right there. So it'll be interesting to see how these three end up after 3 years when we reassess this draft, if they were right taking Johnson over Flowers or Addison.
Let me ask you this. Did you, at any point as a GM, whether it was with Kirk Cousins or another quarterback, would you ask, for example, Kirk Cousins about whether he liked Justin Jefferson or
No.
Okay, you did it? Because they asked Justin Herbert what he wanted.
You see that example right there that we just had up? That would have been a full day cluster study,
right,
to make sure that we studied all three of those guys as a group and with the coaches to watch all three of those receivers to come up with who we thought would be best for us. So they were all, that's where that run went. I think 4 went total or 3 went total in a row. 4 went. Who went after?
Jackson Smith and Jigba was first, and then it was Quentin, then it was Zay, and then it was Jordan.
Okay. Well, in that 3 run, that would have been a great cluster study to sit there and go through it and watch everything and then come up with how you would stack that cluster. So
right.
We just made it. If Debo has any chance, we should make a note on that and try to reassess.
That's a good idea.
Right or not.
Look at that. You're trying to do Debo's job.
Well, I'm just trying to contribute any way I can in my supporting acting role here.
Okay. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back with the other 2 teams in the AFC West before we get to Rick's on the NFC West.
Europe's most exciting title race continues with world-class clubs, legendary rivals, and unbelievable goals.
Brilliant! What a goal!
The Serie A lives here on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
Rick, it's a major time on the golf calendar, and the First Cut podcast has you covered with comprehensive coverage of the PGA Championship from Oak Hill Country Club in Rochester, New York. Join Kyle Porter, Rick Gaiman, and the gang for daily recaps from the aforementioned Rochester as they follow the sport's top stars on their quest for the Wanamaker Trophy. Download and follow the First Cut podcast wherever you find this one. The guys are on scene. Our guy Joe Musso is there in Rochester with the HQ coverage, so check that out. Hit the old QR code there if you're watching on YouTube, or search them wherever you get your podcast.
If
All right,
Debo would have got us a sponsorship or something, maybe we could do the podcast from the that's not too far from your house, is it?
No, it's just over an hour away.
Yeah, it'd been nice. I could have flown up there, and me and you could have done the podcast right from the PGA Championship.
I would have to driven to Columbus to pick you up, though, because that's the only place you fly up north, and we have to drive back to Rochester. But I would have done it for you, Rick. All right, let's take a look at the old Chiefs here. I gave him a C+, and look, maybe I'm just missing something, and you just said it a moment ago. You got to wait 3 years to figure this out, but the Felix Anudike-Uzomah pick, I get it. They need edge rush help. I wonder if they had talked to the Titans. There were reports that the Titans tried to trade back up to get Will Levis at the bottom of round 1. They instead got him with the second pick in round 2. I wonder if the Chiefs, were a team that they called. Either way, this pick I don't have any issue with. The Rashee Rice pick I do have some issues with, because I feel like we saw him at the Senior Bowl. We both watched him play in the fall. And while he may have run a sub 4.5, like a 4.47 or something. He did not play that fast. And he's not a replacement for Juju Smith-Schuster, same body type. He played mostly outside. Juju can line up anywhere. Juju's now in New England. So I guess they're hoping that Sky Moore takes the next step in terms of progressing, and that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce can do the heavy lifting, so on and so forth. I get that. And I'm going to give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt here, because they've done pretty well over the last decade or so. But I just didn't love the pick. Wanya Morris, a 3rd-round pick, late in the 3rd, the tackle out of Oklahoma. We both liked him. He had a really good Senior Bowl. Shamari Connor, 4th round. Maybe a little rich for me, but I get it. The safety out of Virginia Tech. B.J. Thompson, the edge rusher of Stephen F. Austin, went late in round 5. Keandre Colburn, the defensive tackle out of Texas. Upside guy, I like to see him play the higher motor. He went in round 6, but I mean, again, throwing darts here. And then finally, Nick Jones, the cornerback out of Ball State, with their final pick near the bottom of round 7. I didn't love it. I don't hate it. That's why I gave it like a C+, which is just above average. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you gave me the answer to the test. I thought that would have been your first question for me to win a Paramount Plus pass.
Oh yeah,
saying, see, you're not on your A game today.
I blew that one. My bad.
Yeah, you should have said, "Hey, Rick, what do you think of this first pick? I really liked it. Can you say his name?"
And what would you have said? No.
I would have said, "Yeah." I said I could. I would have definitely said his name correct because I liked him.
You still have that opportunity, by the way. No.
I can do it.
All right, go for it.
Felix Enyuduke Uzama.
What's the ruling, Debo?
He's still in the running for the gift card.
That was a good one. I'll give you that one. All right, fair enough.
But it's not fair, Debo, because he gave me the answer to the test.
Oh, I can say a bunch of names and have you repeat them, and we still might have you lose the bet. All right, so you liked Felix Enyuduke Uzama. Where are you on Rashee Rice?
I was just okay with him here. I think they needed to add speed. I know they got Kadarius Toney, who I think teaser if we ever do some breakout players of the year down the road here for 2023. He's one of my players that I think he'll break out. Sky Moore is a slot receiver that is shifty, quicker than fast. You know, they lost Juju Smith-Schuster. It went to New England, so they didn't add speed to this group. That other player, Valdez Scantling.
Oh yeah,
gives them a vertical threat down the field, but I thought they would add more speed here. Now, Rashee Rice is a contested catch guy, very good body control. I just didn't think he added speed, but he may fit their system. The guy I kind of liked was Wani Morris a little bit. I thought that he kind of stuck out down at the Senior Bowl as a right tackle.
Yeah,
I think he's a very good athlete. I think he's raw with his technique, but I think he has tremendous upside. I thought he had a good pre-draft process, so I was kind of excited to see him. I wasn't too thrilled with their Saturday picks, to be honest with you.
All right, no, we're in agreement here. This is one of the lowest graded teams I had this draft round. But again, we'll figure it out. We'll find out together if it's good or not. All right, let's go to Denver, where the Broncos did not have very many picks. 5 by my count. We'll see if I'm right about that. That said, Rick, I gave him an A. They started in round 2 with Marvin Mims, incredibly smart young man, but also an incredibly athletic, game-changing wide receiver / returner. So I think I don't know if he makes a lot of sense because they already have a ton of guys at the wide receiver position, including KJ Hamler, who fits a similar role. But you pointed this out previously. Maybe one of these wide receivers will be on the move. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick. So we'll see how this sorts itself out. But I like the pick in that he's a good football player and he will help Russell Wilson. Then in the 3rd round, a lot of us had him as linebacker 1. Jack Campbell ended up taking those honors. Drew Sanders, transfer from Alabama, where he played mostly outside, to Arkansas, where he played a lot of off ball. Tall, rangy, fast, athletic. Doesn't take on a lot of blocks, but not many off ball linebackers do these days. Then Rick's guy, Riley Moss, went later in round 3.
Yeah, they traded up to go get him.
So Pete insists that he's going to play safety, but I think he has some pretty good tape at cornerback, had a good Senior Bowl at cornerback. Either way, he's one of the smartest players in this draft class. Basically, if you go watch him play, he does things that don't even make sense. And he's a really good athlete. J.L. Skinner, the safety out of Boise, went in round 6. If he would choose to tackle people, he would have been a top 100 pick, but that was a big issue for me. He's a big player. I don't know if he weighs 220. That's what he's listed here, but he's 6'4". And then Alex Forsyth, offensive line depth on the interior out of Oregon with their final pick in round 7. What'd you think about this?
Yeah, I really like this draft class. I'd have to agree with you on what you talked about here. I think Mims brings them juice, which to me, when you look at their depth chart at receiver now, you got Hamler, who's always has issues with durability. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these receivers will get moved before the season starts, since they went and got Marvin Mims, and I believe they had to trade up to go get him as well. Drew Sanders, I think with that defense that you can do many things with him. I love that pick. I loved Riley Moss. I think they'll keep him at corner. Maybe some Nick, but I think he's an outside corner. If he fails there, you know he's probably going to be good enough to line up and start at free safety because of his instincts and his ability to tackle. Skinner, I agree with. And the underrated guy that I thought was on this was Alex Forsyth, the center from Oregon, who's not the most body beautiful, but I think he's a really good football player. You know who he reminded me of?
Who?
John Sullivan, when we took
Oh,
him out of Notre Dame
wow.
in the later rounds, I think 5th or 6th round back when and John Sullivan ended up having a very good career. So I could see something like that happening with Alex as well down the road.
I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe Forsyth was the player who had an opportunity to go to the Senior Bowl and pulled out at the last minute.
Yeah, yep. I think that was the one that I was complaining about.
Right. Okay. Because he didn't compete, but it may have been.
Yep, for all the young fine men out there that decide to have their agents make decisions for them. Look at everyone who didn't run, probably fell farther than they thought they were going to fall, or they didn't work out in the spring at their pro days or at the combine, and then when they decide to pull out of some of these all-star games, I think it really does affect their draft status.
And
Yeah.
Ryan, I hate to do this. I think Rick just eliminated himself with Alex Forsyth.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he called him Forsyth. I was going to give him a pass on that, but then he said young fine men. I was going to absolutely disqualify him on he got my saying wrong. So maybe next time, Rick.
Tune in Monday.
Will I get some chapstick for being a participant today or no?
Yeah, you get chapstick for sure. You've earned the chapstick.
Dang.
Young fine man. That's disrespectful. All right. Let's take a quick break, and then Rick will mispronounce some names in the NFC West when we come back right after this.
Ghostface is here. He's gonna keep coming for us.
Did you miss me?
We've got to lure him in. And we execute him.
Scream. Rated R. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
We're just taunting Rick with these commercials. If you're watching on YouTube, you saw the Scream commercial. Now streaming on Paramount Plus. If you're on audio, it was a commercial for Scream. Now streaming on Paramount Plus. And Rick will have to wait at least until Monday for an opportunity to watch it. So everyone else, go check it out. Let us know what you think. And we'll get Rick's review whenever he decides to pass the test. All right. And as always, you can watch us live on YouTube at NFL on CBS. Give us a thumbs up. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. All right, Rick, let's get to the NFC West. We'll start with the Seahawks, a team that I thought had a really good draft. You did too, apparently. You gave them an A. Let's see what they did here. Devin Witherspoon at the top, 5th overall. Love it. Then they come back and get Jackson Smith-Njigba at 20th on that run of wide receivers we talked about earlier. Then at the top of round 2, they get Derek Hall, the edge rusher out of Auburn. He's a little twitched, can be stiff at times, but he feels like a Seahawks pick. Then they get some depth at running back behind Ken Walker III and Zach Charbonnet out of Michigan.
You lose your Paramount Plus prescription.
He called it prescription, Devo.
I can't even. I keep laughing at my own jokes.
He was so excited to make fun of me. Zach Charbonnet, UCLA by way of Michigan, and then Anthony Bradford, interior offensive lineman out of LSU. They get him in round 4. Then Cameron Young, the defensive lineman out of Mississippi State, at depth there. Later in round 4, Mike Morris, the edge rusher out of Michigan, in round 5. A few picks later. You want to do the center for Michigan, or you want me to take it?
I already lost, so go ahead. I'm like dejected for the rest of the show.
A few picks later to get Mike Morris's teammate, Oluwatimi, the center there. He had some depth, and then finally Kenny McIntosh, another running back they get in round 7, and in the round before that, they got Jarek Reed, the safety out of New Mexico. So let me just ask you philosophically, Zach Charbonnet and Kenny McIntosh, how many running backs? Is this an indication that we're just going to run the ball until the wheels fall off of these guys?
No, I just think that that's running back by committee up there. And They had success last year. Walker had some durability issues last year, and you want to make sure you have enough depth behind your lead dog, especially if he's going to miss time. and I think he has to be able to show that he can line up for 17 games and stay healthy. So to me, you have to have enough running backs because of the durability concerns of Walker. Debo, here's a quick fact for you that I know because you do so much research for this show that the Seattle Seahawks have drafted 11 running backs in the past 10 drafts.
Jeez.
That's a lot of runners.
That's a lot of running backs.
So I think that's the highest among any other team.
How
So
many
they
do
have-
you think you drafted in your last 10 drafts?
Ooh.
How
Like 6
many?
or 7?
Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to.
Madison, Dalvin, 10 drafts. That doesn't count Adrian Peterson. So we'll have to look into that. But Zach Charbonnet, second-round pick this year. Ken Walker the third, second-round pick last year. Some people might say that's too rich, but it feels like it fits this offense to what they want to do.
Yeah, you don't want and Geno Smith, give him credit for the season he had last year. But to me, I still don't think he's a quarterback that you want to throw 40, 50 times a game and win. You want to be able to play good defense. They have an excellent defense. Now with the addition of some of these guys, I think I should correct myself. They have some excellent young talent on the defense, and they added to that this year.
Yep.
And then if you can control the clock by running the ball, the weather conditions get out there in Seattle are not always conducive of throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game. So if you can control the clock and play good defense, they probably are the lead dog right now. Although San Francisco's got a very good football team. We'll talk about them in a minute. Another teaser that I learned from my broadcasting school. That they're going to be in the battle with Seattle, I think, to take this division.
Before we move on, let me ask you quickly about Mike Morris, the edge rusher they drafted in the 5th round. We both watched him in the fall, and he's a get-off-the-bus guy, but he's not a consistency on the field guy. What are you expecting when you draft someone like this in the 5th round?
I think that they saw some of the signs or the flashes we saw because he was productive. To me, he just wasn't as quick twitched. He had a poor workout at the combine. If I recall, he probably ran close to 5 flat, Ryan. And,
I think you're right.
so he didn't have great athletic numbers as an edge rusher. So they may add some weight to him, use him some inside and outside, but I think he's good enough to be a rotational guy. I just wish he played with a little more fire in his belly.
Oh, stole Pete Prisco, isn't there? Fire in the belly. He said that all the time about Tua lacking. All right. So, Rick, last 10 drafts, how many running backs did you take?
7?
5.
5.
Can you name them? I'll give you the easy ones. Dalvin and Madison.
Yep. The Iowa State kid.
Who's that? I don't know. Who would Iowa State?
The backup at Iowa State.
Oh, Kene Nwangwu.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Nwangwu, who ended up, we took him a lot, tried to do what CP Cordero Patterson did for us as a kickoff returner. And he's, I think, had 4 or 5 already kickoff returns returned for touchdowns. I know he had one last year. He had 2 his rookie year. So, but I think because of his speed and his size, so we saw him as a kickoff returner and a rotational running back. So that was 3.
All right. You're filibustering. You know the other 2?
No.
Jarek?
Oh, Jarek McKinnon?
Yep. And Red Ellison.
Red Ellison wasn't. He was a tight end out of USC. He wasn't a fullback.
Oh, he must have been listed like as a halfback.
Fullback, H-back.
Yeah.
But he was a tight end. He wasn't a running back.
All right. So only 4. Then in 2010, you took Toby Gerhart and Ryan D'Imperio.
Yeah, Ryan D'Imperio.
Yeah.
He was a converted linebacker that came out of Rutgers. That
Wow.
played fullback for us.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. There you go. So you're not quite as running back in love with running backs like John Schneider, your buddy.
No, but they, because they've had some durability. I mean, even the Rashad Penny who they took in the first round,
Yeah,
had some issues with durability. It still does.
Yep. Don't tell Debo. That's why they got DeAndre Swift. All right.
Yeah, who also has durability issues.
Don't tell Debo. All right, let's go to Arizona, a team that's had a interesting offseason, to say the least. New coach, new general manager, quarterback on the mend from ACL, injury/surgery. You gave the Cardinals a B. I thought they did pretty good in this draft here, all things considered.
Would you have given them an A?
I would give them A for solely taking Michael Wilson in the third round, proving me right and you wrong. But
God, that's the only dollar you won, I believe.
you might be right. That one in that you could get to Stamford, Connecticut in 45 minutes from New York City. Paris Johnson Jr. at the top. They traded down, right? Out of 3. Yeah, they traded down from 3 then back into 6. They did
No, what happened was they traded down, which I would have gave them an A++ because of the primary picks they're going to have in the future.
They traded to 12, right?
And then they went back up to 6.
Gotcha.
Detroit traded. And
Right.
we talked about the gamemanship that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And when Seattle took Witherspoon instead of maybe a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Carter, Witherspoon, I believe, was the ideal fit for Detroit's defensive system and his demeanor. But Detroit was able to trade out and then came back up, I believe, or was able to move back up to get Gibbs. But that was the same thing where we saw Pittsburgh trade right ahead of the Jets, but the Jets were not able to trade. Detroit was able to trade out of that to add some more picks.
So clearly the Cardinals were targeting Paris Johnson Jr. because they moved.
You know what's interesting is I read some clips and articles on that Kyler Murray, that was his favorite guy in the draft and wanted them to draft that. Now, whether that had an influence on them taking or coming back up to get Paris Johnson or not, because that would have been interesting to see if they would have not traded back up to get Paris Johnson, if they were still able to land him at the 12th pick.
Well, maybe Kyler's looking ahead to next year's draft, specifically Ryan Wilson mock draft 2024, way too early, where they have the first 2 picks and they take Caleb and Marvin Harrison. He wants to make sure he has some protection this year, an opportunity to keep his job. All right, round 2, they get BJ Ojulari, a fun, twitchy edge rusher out of LSU. His brother Aziz plays for the Giants. He was also a second-round pick a few years ago. Garrett Williams, my guy to Syracuse, the cornerback, tore his ACL late last fall in the Notre Dame game.
He was a good tackler.
Williams. He's aggressive. He could probably be a little cleaner coming downhill.
He missed a lot of tackles for me. And not that he was willing, but
right.
I just think he
a little out of control.
Many tackles.
Yeah, he's also smaller. He plays bigger than I think he's like 190 or something, 5'11", 190. He plays a little bigger than that. Yeah, no, I'm not going to push back on that. He is willing, but he needs to clean it up. Then the best player in this draft, as far as I'm concerned, Michael Wilson, the wide receiver out of Stanford, with late in round 3. Tried to tell Rick that. He literally laughed in my face. Ha, ha, ha. And then
that's my French. You know, like I can speak multiple languages.
Oh, God.
You know. No, wait.
What is that?
Stop laughing at myself here.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's so I can speak England. So
I can speak. Debo, he just said I can speak England.
A little bit of a sticky wicket here, mate.
Oh,
I can speak German. Haben Sie ein Zimmer für heute Abend?
This is a rough show for Rick.
He's solely in the off season.
It's like my golf. Like I was playing good yesterday, and I had one blow up hole, and it takes me 4 more holes before I get my head out of my arse to figure out that. Yeah,
out of your goat's arse.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean that's part of the process. You got to be able to get over
my French.
Go ahead.
That's how they laugh over there in France.
Oh, that is okay. By the way, you would not be a good cornerback, it sounds like, if you can't get out of your own head after a bad play or a bad putt or a bad shot.
No, like at linebacker, at least you can go hit something and knock
the
sense out of you. Corner, not. No. If I have one weakness, I get in my head sometimes on the golf course, and I need to get that corrected.
Yeah, that was one of my big weaknesses as a baseball
player. If I had
player.
Paramount Plus, maybe they have a series on golf psychology.
They don't. So you're not missing that. You are missing a ton of soccer, though. Shout out to Lige for
Man City beat I think it was Real Madrid on CBS Sports yesterday in the Europa Champions League.
That's right. And our guy Lige Douzable is a huge Man City fan. They smoked him 4-0.
Yeah, he's a bandwagon guy.
Yeah, he is a bandwagon guy. All right, John Gaines, the interior offensive lineman at UCLA. They took him in round 4. Clayton Tune, the quarterback, interesting. Out of Houston, he can spin it a little bit. He went in round 5. There was a run on quarterbacks. I think there ended up being, like 12 or 13. I have to double check, but a lot. Owen Papo, a linebacker at Auburn. We didn't talk a lot about him, but I watched him in the fall. I actually liked him.
Yep.
One in a long line of sort of undersized, athletic linebackers. Keitrell Clark, cornerback out of Louisville, went in round 6. I liked him a lot. I thought he was a day 2 guy, but I was pretty much the only person on that train. He ends up going in round 6. And then Dante Stills, the undersized interior defensive line from West Virginia, in round 6. And I think that was their final pick. All right, so I'm assuming you like the Paris Johnson Jr. pick. Do you like the way in which they went about getting it? Was that too much?
Yeah, no, I think they needed a left tackle, although they it will be interesting to see what they do with DJ Humphries, because they paid him a contract extension, I think, a year or 2 ago. So, but they're starting a new regime. So I imagine you're going to move up to go get this left tackle that he's going to be the day 1 starter for you.
Hey, let me ask you, Rick. So Kelvin Beachum has been there forever. He's the right tackle, former 7th-round pick out of SMU, played for the Steelers for a while. Paris Johnson Jr. played right guard in the 2021 season.
Yep.
How easy is it to go from right guard to right tackle 2 years later? Is that easier than going from left tackle to right tackle?
I think it's easier to play right tackle instead of going from tackle inside the guard.
Oh, okay.
I think it's easier to make that transition, especially with how he played left tackle this year.
Right.
That they do move him over on the right side, that's not going to be a very difficult transition for him.
Now, this is the I use the ourlads.com for the rosters and the depth charts, and I don't know if they get it from the actual website, and it may not matter because that's not official either, as you would probably know. They have Paris Johnson Jr. listed at left guard. Now, I don't know if that's a realistic possibility or if that's just something that they scribbled in. The Cardinals did just to placate the media. But if you play right guard, can you play left guard?
I think, but you don't move up if you're for a guard.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough.
So.
All right. Any other picks you like in this draft? You want to talk about Michael Wilson and his impact on this team?
No, I don't like Michael Wilson at all. I do like Owen Papo.
You overcomplicated it. Okay, yeah. What
yeah,
like
because I do think he's an undersized linebacker that's very instinctive. He does not take on very well in line, but he is definitely instinctive. He makes a lot of plays when he can free flow to the ball, has excellent range outside, and I thought he was very good athlete in coverage. So I think they potentially got a 3-down linebacker here, and that's very good value. I think he went this low because he is undersized, and I don't think he popped out from an athletic standpoint, but he plays a lot faster on tape than he probably ran.
Yeah, I liked him as a top 100 guy when I'm looking back here at my notes here. Ended up going late in round 5, so could indeed be great value. That defense, I'm going through it. They have a lot of guys in that defense who had real name recognition coming out of the draft that just haven't yet materialized. So hopefully it comes together for them because their defense has a chance to be good, but, we'll see. All right, let's go to Los Angeles. Take a look at the old Rams here.
This is, you talk about changing philosophy.
Oh my gosh. No picks to 40,000 picks in the draft. So their first pick wasn't until pick number 36. And they got Steve Avila, a guy that we liked a lot. Played guard, could play center if you need him to. Then they circle back and round 3, and they get Byron Young, the other Byron Young, the tackle out of Tennessee. A little older, but he's pretty twitched up. He was a lot of fun to watch in the fall. He was also really good at the Senior Bowl. Then Rick's favorite player, Kobe Turner, went in round 3, Wake Forest. Credit to him, man. Like, we gave him a hard time. We gave our guy Chris Trapasso a hard time back in the fall or early in the draft process about having him go in one of our mock drafts. He ends up being a top 89 pick, so we'll see how it works out. He does have some twitch to him, so transferred to, I can't remember where he transferred from, but he's transferred, came in and played pretty well for Wake. Then Stetson Bennett, Quarterback went in round 4. I was surprised by that, in part because of his size, in part because of his age, in part because I know he didn't interview great with teams, but if anyone can have success with the quarterback, you would imagine it'd be Sean McVay. Nick Hampton, edge rusher out of App State. We'll see if he has to move inside. He's a little undersized, but he's athletic, and he was a fun guy to watch during the fall. He goes around 5. Around later, Warren McClendon, tackle out of Georgia, adds some depth there. Davis Allen, the tight end out of Clemson. He also goes in round 5. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. Not particularly athletic, but he feels like a good inline blocker with some ability to catch the ball as a security blanket. Puka Nacua, the wide receiver out of BYU, also goes in round 5. A tall, pretty athletic, high-point catch guy from BYU. He's not going to run by you, but I think he gives you some depth at the wide receiver position. Travius, Hodges Tomlinson, smallish slot guy, incredibly handsy. He got a ton of down the field penalties, and Rick's talked about in the past, you can sort of coach those out of players, but when you're that small, it's going to be a battle, a slog every single day. Ochon Mathis, edge rusher out of Nebraska. I liked his tape a lot. He ends up going around 6. Zach Evans, the running back of the Mississippi. He adds a lot. He's great depth there. And of course, the guy who had number 1 on my board, Ethan Evans, the punter out of Wingate. He goes in round 7. And then Jason Taylor out of Oklahoma State, the safety, also goes around 7. And then finally, Mr. Irrelevant, I believe, DeJuan Johnson, defensive lineman out of Toledo. I actually liked his tape a little bit. So this is you talk about change of philosophy, Rick. They get some good players, but they still have some questions to answer, right?
Yeah, well, they just look at they're rebuilding this roster. They traded away Ramsey. They didn't sign Floyd back. They didn't sign Bobby Wagner. They got rid of Bobby Wagner, who went back to Seattle. So they're kind of in the rebuild mode. They didn't have another first-round pick this year. They accumulated a lot of picks. You talk about darts. They have a lot of opportunity to hit on some of these guys. I think this will recreate that energy that Sean McVay has and the coaching staff because of the challenge of having so many young guys on this roster. They're going to want to prove what type of coach Sean McVay is, what type of coaches his staff are, and they're going to get some value out of a lot of these picks. I love Mathis from Nebraska. If he learns how to just pin his ears back and go, I think he has some pass rush ability. Zach Evans was a great value where they got him in the 7th round.
Yeah.
They'll add depth to Cam Akers. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys all shake out. I think Avila is a starting day 1 starter, either a guard or center, wherever they end up putting him.
Yep.
And so they're in the rebuild mode, but this is the type of draft and the type of off season that the Rams drafted, I would say, volume. And now the coaches get an opportunity to prove, to make some of these players into players that are going to help them get back to where they need to be.
By the way, the entire Rams special teams, the punter, the place kicker, the long snapper, the holder, kickoff and punt returner, all rookies.
It's going to be a young team, so it's going to be a growing year for them. But it'll be, like I said, it energizes that franchise with all these new faces, all this young blood coming in, to start developing them and see how we can grow as an organization. It'll be interesting to see how they go about this year, and then with Stafford and his age,
Right.
if they go quarterback next year to put with this extremely large draft class.
I was going to say, you talk about quarterback. What you think Stetson Bennett playing for Sean McVay can have a Brock Purdy type situation?
I don't know that, but Sean McVay has been okay with quarterbacks. I don't know if he's in the Shanahan category yet,
Right.
but he is good with quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if Bennett is talented enough to be that, guy that's going to lead him to championships down the road, but we probably would have said the same thing about Purdy last year.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy was athletic 2 years ago coming out, but the year before he came out, and there's some buzz about him. There was never really any sort of draft buzz about Stetson Bennett, but I think that's because he's been around for so long, and he is undersized. And the funny thing is, like, it felt like in the moment that McVay got the most out of Jared Goff, but Jared Goff got to Detroit, and he's been better than Matthew Stafford on the whole. Obviously, Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl, and has battled injuries. But I think that Jared's played with more consistency.
Yeah, but Jared Goff also got them to a Super Bowl too.
Right. No, that's right.
Got the
That's
contract extension. So let's not beat up Jared Goff too bad.
I'm not beating him up at all. I'm actually.
Yeah, you are. You're very grouchy today.
He's the quarterback of my new favorite team.
With your new favorite brother
employs my favorite Spielman.
Yeah, your new favorite Spielman.
My new favorite Spielman. All right, one more team here, the 49ers. We just talked about them with their quarterback situation. They're still sorting through as Brock Purdy recovers from elbow surgery. And then, of course, Trey Lance, what do you do with him? Shanahan's the coach. You gave him a C+. And at the top, why my things are all messed up here. So let's go with what? So Jair Brown, the cornerback slash safety at a Penn State. I think he's more nickel deep safety guy. They took him in round 3. I don't mind that pick. Jake Moody, the kicker out of Michigan, at the bottom of round 3. That's curious. We'll see. You need a kicker, but sometimes it's hard to. And I'll ask you about this in a second, Rick. Cameron Latu, the tight end out of Alabama. You know him. We saw him at the pro day. We talked to him. I believe we talked to him at the combine. Darrell Luter, the cornerback out of South Alabama. He was at the Senior Bowl, a little stiff, but he's long. Robert Bill Jr., the edge rusher, who has a little juice. He's sort of a one-trick pony guy. D. Winters, the linebacker out of TCU. He goes in round 6. I thought the first 3 quarters of his season didn't blow me away. The last few games, he really played well. Braden Willis, the tight end out of Oklahoma. He's more of a H-back. He will block his butt off. He's a little undersized. He reminded me of Kyle Juszczyk, so it makes sense he goes to San Francisco. Ronnie Bell, the wide receiver out of Michigan. Could be a little more athletic, not as athletic as you would want, but that's why he goes in the 7th round. And then Jalen Graham, linebacker out of Purdue, also went in the 7th round. I liked him a lot when I watched Purdue. I think he could be a sneaky good pick here. Certainly a lot of value. So, Rick, what did the analytics tell you about drafting kickers early? Because sometimes you take a kicker early, like Robert Aguayo in Tampa Bay went in the 2nd round, however long ago that was. That was a disaster from day one. Is there something you look at when you try to get these kickers, or you just listen to the special teams coach?
Well, you're asking the wrong dude, because
there you go.
I've been through a lot of kickers, and then the one that hit, we ended up cutting. I should say that's my responsibility. Now he's an all-pro kicker. Carlson.
You can say we. You're not employed anymore with the team, so you can say we.
I will take the hit for that because he missed those kicks. His second professional game in Green Bay.
And he missed a lot of kicks, though, Daniel Carlson, right?
3 kicks that could have won up there in overtime.
Yeah.
And then fans were all over him, and I don't know, probably should have been more patient. We should have been more patient, and we weren't. So
he was pick 168. How did you decide to take him? Or again, was that a special teams leaning?
Yeah, we had a lot of times. Again, I'm fully responsible, but I relied on a lot of
we get that part.
Coaches, and I always kind of related it to a golfer. So we, the one kicker that we drafted that one of the producers, which I won't say his name, keeps playing in my
head. Jack Capardo.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call Jack out on the podcast. Blair Walsh, 28-yard field goal to advance in the playoffs. Wide left.
Not to go too deep down that road. From your vantage point in the suites, I'm assuming this is at the Minnesota Gopher Stadium, right?
Yeah, it was like -17 without the wind chill that game.
Did you know immediately, or did you think he made it?
I thought he made it. I thought he made it.
Oh, no.
From where I was sitting up there.
Right. Because some fans thought the same thing, and then they had to be informed that the ball, in fact, did not go through the uprights.
Yeah, no, that was a tough one. And,
thanks, Jack.
Yeah, Jack continues to remind me of that every show that we do, or he'll play that Paul Allen.
Unbelievable.
Line on. He missed it.
Oh, he even plays Paul Allen.
He goes back and plays Paul Allen the replay.
Paul Allen is the longtime voice of the Vikings. He's fantastic.
Yeah, one of the best, if not the best in the league, in my opinion.
His call of the end of the Vikings-Bills game last year, if you're a Vikings fan, it's a lot of fun to listen to. If you're a Bills fan, not so much. But yeah, he is a institution, and I'm sure it it greatly pained him to have to make that call. So in terms of Jake Moody, are you okay with this pick? 3rd round, 99?
Let's play it out.
All right.
I think there are a lot of pretty good players up there, but you have to give credit to, you got to add McCaffrey into this.
For sure.
And they were pretty aggressive in free agency. The only thing I didn't like about this draft is that I don't know who's going to play right tackle for him. They lost McGlinchey to Denver, and they did not draft. They drafted a kicker in the 3rd round when Wani Morris was still there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I was looking through who was left. Blake Freeland, DeJuan Jones, Carter Warren from Pittsburgh. DeJuan Jones, Ohio State. We've talked about him. Freeland, the guy you kind of like from BYU.
Yeah.
They were all sitting there, and they went kicker instead.
So does that give you some indication, just, knowing in the media what we know, that there were some concerns with maybe Blake Freeland's ability to gain weight, or maybe DeJuan Jones' motivation? Because the idea of Trent Williams and DeJuan Jones on an offensive line on paper is very intriguing.
Yeah, no, they probably had issues, but right now their starting right tackle is, McKivitz, who came out of West Virginia, who hasn't really played much. So they must have they know a lot more about him than we do on the outside. But right now he's slated to go in as their starting right tackle.
And they don't have any depth behind Trent Williams either. Right now it's Matt Pryor and Leroy Watson, and boy. Yeah, so that is a legitimate concern for sure. Fair enough. That's why you gave him C+. Any other picks that stuck out to you that you liked?
No. Oh, the Braden Willis.
No.
I loved him as a player because I think he could play fullback. He could play H-back. He's athletic. He's an aggressive blocker, undersized, but they even lined him up as a wildcat quarterback and snapped the ball to him a few times on the tapes that I watched at Oklahoma. I thought this guy was a really, really good football player.
I'm with you. I liked him a lot too. I was surprised that he didn't get a little more buzz, but that's why I'm me and everyone else is everyone else. All right, Rick, next week, we're going to take a look at some impact rookies and impact rookie classes. So that'll be fun. We're going to keep mixing up here as we look back at the 2023 draft class before we move ahead to 2024. It's May 18th now. Before you know it, Rick will be in training camp, and this thing will be starting all over. But for now, that's a wrap on episode 52. Remember, give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast. Leaves a 5-star review. Thanks, as always, to my guy, Rick, who has yet to get his Paramount Plus subscription. We'll see what happens on Monday. Come back for that. Thanks for Debo to producing. And thanks to you guys for watching and listening.
I did win Chapstick today, though, for being a supporting actor participant.
And let me tell you, you gave a chapstick-worthy effort today. So I want to applaud you for that. $2.19. Thank you very much.
Debo, the post office is now open on the island, so you can send that chapstick right to my home address.
Nothing from Debo. All right, we're out of here. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday.